Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, and a good July 22nd, 2018 for you. We are here live on Kardec Radio Facebook page, streaming live at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between and around the world. So please, if you would ask us any questions, go on Facebook Live, type a comment in, and we will try and answer your questions. We are here to promote Spiritism. So again, please share this video, share Kardec Radio Facebook page to everybody. Tell them they can hear Facebook live streaming from various Spiritists. Also, we are live on Kardec Radio. You can get Kardec Radio on your Android or your Apple phone. Just go to your Play Store or your App Store and type in Kardec Radio. Again, this is all from Allan Kardec, who wrote the Spirits book. See, Kardec, Kardec Radio, and you will be able to download that application for free and listen to Spiritist Radio and different programs from many different contributors, 24 hours a day. I know I listen to that before I go to bed, or sometimes I wake up, or any time of the day. I will listen to with the latest knowledge. There's a lot of great people. Vanessa Anzalone and others are on Kardec Radio, and so it's a wonderful tool to use to learn about Spiritism. Now, tonight, as I always want to say first, this is all about Spiritism. And who codified Spiritism? Allan Kardec, right? The Spirits book. Now, you can find his Spirits book. You can find all of his books on the EDICEI website. Now, if you go to my blog, which I have there on the bottom here, nwspiritism.com, I have a picture of Allan Kardec. You click on his picture, it'll take you to that bookstore. You'll find all his books and books by Chico Xavier, Yvonne Pereira, and other Spiritist authors. And one thing I want to say, I haven't said before, is Allan Kardec's books are great. You can also get them in PDF. But one of my other favorite books, besides the Spirits books, is The Gospel According to Spiritism. Now, if you always wonder when you read the New Testament, and they say like, let the dead bury the dead, and other words, it's this really explains what it means. Hello, Samara. Oh, from Carioca. She's from Rio de Janeiro, or born there in Rio de Janeiro, or lives. So it's very interesting, and I found it took away, because the New Testament has all sorts of parables, and a lot of things we don't understand, and it was done in fact. And Spiritism explains that, because there was a lot of New Testament parables because we weren't ready really to deeply understand what it meant. And now Allan Kardec, who codified Spiritism in the 1850s, has brought to us, as promised in the New Testament, the Spirit of Truth, the Consoler, who will bring us more information. And the reason to bring us information is because culturally and technologically, we are more mature and able to understand the messages that will be sent to us. And the wonderful thing about Spiritism is it's dynamic, right? Spiritism tells us the messages in the New Testament and the Old Testament that are, about love and charity, forgiveness, and fraternity are eternal. But everything else is there's a lot of information there that was sent to the people at the level of technology and culture at the time. So Spiritists do not do a literal translation from the Bible, because it's dynamic. We're always getting more information from Spiritist mediums, right? From the spirits who talk to us, the Spiritist mediums. And one of the big things we talk about tonight will be information sent to the Reverend G. Vaughn, and I'm covering that in my book, How We Are Guided by Spirits, Book 3 of Spiritism, the Spirit World as Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. And that was the Reverend G. Vaughn. And it was just amazing. Now Allan Kardec came in the 1850s. Spirits talked to him in the early 1900s. And then, of course, Chico Xavier started like in 1930, all the way to the year 2000 that he was psychographing books. It was just, wonderful service. Always new things. And what I do is I take information sent to the Reverend G. Vaughn, and I show what Allan Kardec in his codification of Spiritism said about it. I talk about other Spiritist writers like Chico Xavier, etc., and how all this information is building one upon another, telling us how the spirit world works. That is the great thing about Spiritism. They are, in the Old New Testament, other religions, there's, there's information about heaven and other places and how you should behave. But Spiritism gives us that, that extra peek, in the keyhole, behind the veil of exactly what we need to expect, right? And how we need to behave when we leave this temporary body and we go to the other side. Now, tonight, we're going to talk about something I think a lot of people care about, and that's guardian angels. And did you know that guardian angels, they stay with us in the spirit world too? So guardian angels, right? The mere word conveys a deep feeling to your body. It's as if your favorite cozy blanket was covering you on a cold day, bringing warmth and comfort. We do, in fact, have a guardian angel, a mentor who guides us in our path to improvement. And Spiritism notifies us that we are always watched, viewed with love and kindness, sometimes from afar, and other times very close and intimate. Your guardian angel doesn't have to be physically with you, right? Even though they're in spirit form, they can create a connection from you from billions of miles away. So the spirit Zabdiel communicated with the Reverend G. Vau Owen in 1913 about his spirit guide. So here is a high spirit, Zabdiel, who talks about his spirit guide. Now, at first, the presence of a guardian angel for one who is in heaven seems a bit out of place, does it not? But this type of thinking is self-centered for us here on earth. We are spirits encased in a physical body. The majority of our immortal existence will be in the spirit world. Our goal is to ascend up the levels of heaven to one day become a pure spirit. Hence, we require mentors to assist our quest. Not only when we are on the physical plane, but also in the spirit realm. Isn't that just like a lot of companies you've been through? People are assigned a mentor, someone to help them, or you just naturally get somebody to help you. The same thing in the spirit world. So Zabdiel describes, and he's a very interesting spirit. I can't wait to learn more about him when I pass over. He describes the time when he was standing on high mountains in the upper limits of the 10th level of heaven. Now, as I said before, they used the spirits who talked to Reverend G. Vau and used this numbering system, right, from the first level, like somewhere around No Solar was probably at, to the 10th. And after the 10th, they weren't sure, what was that about. And after the 10th is when you really become a creative spirit. You've gone through your college level, I guess you could say. So anyway, so different spirits could say different levels, but in the books, messages sent to G. Vau Owen, they number them in that manner. So he was at very high level of heaven as we see it, right? To him, it's still low. There's all sorts of things above him. So it's never ending. There's always one more level to go to. So he was standing on high in the mountains, right? And he was peering across a valley to the mountains that were the beginnings of the 11th level of heaven. He was just he'd go there. He liked to meditate and feel the presence of his sphere and the sphere above him. And from that vantage point, he could feel the all-embracing love of the divine universe. And then Zabdiel tells what happened next. He says, this is what he said. Once I stood thus, with face turned towards my future home, and closed my eyes. For the intensity of light as it moved before me was more than I could bear continuously. It was there I first was permitted to see and speak to my guardian angel and my guide. He stood upon the summit over against me opposite, and the valley was between. When I opened my eyes, I saw him there, as if he suddenly taken on a visible form for me, that I might see him the more plainly. And so it was indeed, and he smiled on me and stood there watching me in my perplexity. He was clad of glittering silk-like tunic to the knees, and round his middle was a belt of silver. His arms and legs below were bare of covering, and seemed to glow and give forth light of his holiness in purity of heart. And his face was the brightest of all. He wore a cap of blue upon his hair, which was like silver, just turning into gold. And in the cap shone the jewel of his order. I had not seen one of this kind before. It was a brown stone and emitted a brown light, very beautiful and glowing with the life which was all about us. At last, he said, come over to me. And I was thereupon afraid, not with any terror, but rather abashed of all. And that way I feared, not else. So, what did he just tell us? Zabdal, who resided in the 10th level of heaven, had never until now, so how many millions of years has he been in life after life and rising up level after level, come face to face with his guardian angel. Imagine traveling through so many lives, sensing a benign presence, a compassionate friend, but never quite grasping the image and form of that companion. Now, finally, Zabdal was only a valley away from his mentor. He stood in awe, and not because he felt small or inferior, but of meeting a spirit that has accomplished what Zabdal has dreamt of attaining, not acquiring by luck or by who he knows, for that is impossible in the spirit world, but a spirit that has risen through his own dedication and discipline. As in our fascination with athletes whom we admire, not because they are famous, but we look up to them because we understand the work they put into their profession, day in, day out, to achieve the status they have attained. We stand in awe because we too would like to match their work ethic and self-control. So Zabdal sat there, and then he said, I know you for my guide, sir, for my heart tells me this much, and I delight to look upon you thus, for it is very lovely and sweet to me. In presence you have been with me often on my heavenly road, but always just before, that I have not been able to overtake you. And now that I've given to see you thus in visible form, I am glad to thank you for all your love and tender. But, my Lord and guardian, I fear to come to you, for while I descend into the valley, the brightness of your sphere will dazzle me and make my feet unsure. And when I should ascend to you, I think I should faint by reason of the greater glory which is about you. Even here, I, from this distance, feel it scarce to be borne for too long. So, let's interpret that again. So, one of the things we know from Spiritism, from books by Jiva Owen, as well as Chico Xavier, is that when spirits are, the higher the level of spirit, the less mass, the less material, and the more energy. And so a spirit from a high level who goes down into even a lower level of heaven, not to mention the umbral or the lower zone, and then here on earth, like, we can't see spirits, but even in the umbral, which is the lower zone around the earth, which starts on the crust of the earth, they can't see because they are more ethereal than the spirits there. So again, as we pass over, you become more, as you rise in heaven, more energy and less material. And so then even when you try to walk up into heaven, into the next level, it becomes too bright and uncomfortable. You just can't make it, right? It's just impossible to be there for long. So hence an inferior spirit can only see white light and is unable to make out features and is uncomfortable in such surroundings. And so then Zabdal is sitting there, and then his mentor says, he supplies the solution. This is what his mentor says. Yes, for this time, I will be your strength, as many times before I have been, not always of your knowledge, and at times again when you have known me near, but only in part. We have been so much together that I am able now to give you more than hitherto. Only be strong and with all your courage to the fore, for no harm shall fall upon you. It is to this same end that I have impressed you to come to this place, as often I have come to you. So now again, think about us here on earth versus Zabdal is already this high spirit, right? It'd be like in the No Solar when Andre Luis met his mother. I don't know if people have seen the movie or read the book No Solar. It's a great book. I recommend everybody to get it. And you'll see the movie. It's also called Astral City or Celestial City. You can find it on Amazon. And he talked to his mother. It was from a higher plane. He goes, "Oh, you're a higher plane," and she was just probably a couple levels ahead. And yet Zabdal's even higher. I would assume, I could be wrong, even higher than her. But the fact that this guardian angel actually impressed, right, with inspiration, or that, no, Zabdal, you should come to the mountain at that time. And Zabdal thought he just wanted to walk to his favorite place to meditate and ponder about the future. He had no idea he was being motivated at that exact time and place, determined by his guide. So if he was easily manipulated by higher spirit, imagine how easily we are on earth. We must perform deeds or come up with ideas that we thought were our own, but were actually implanted to us by our guardian spirits. So don't doubt, even for a moment, that many of our actions we believe come from ourselves alone are covertly placed in our minds by higher powers. Yes, we still have free will to make important choices, but we are led to certain episodes in our life according to our life's plan. So Zabdal's spirit guide then begins to construct how he and Zabdal will meet in person for the first time. And this is what Zabdal said. Then I saw him for a while stand very still indeed, and as he might have been a statue very well, but presently his form took on another aspect. He seemed to be in tension as to the muscles of his arms and legs, and I could see, beneath the thin gossamer-like garment, that his body was there in like manner, exerting its every power. His hands were hanging at his side and turned outward a little, and his eyes were closed. Then a strange thing happened. From beneath his feet there came a cloud of blue and pink mingled, and it moved across from him to me until it was a bridge between the two summits. So we had a valley from one to the other and spanned the valley below. So he was creating a tunnel, a bridge from one to the other using his mind. So I always talk about thought is action in the spirit world. Let me carry on with what Zabdal said. It was in height a little more than that of a man, and in breadth a little broader. This gradually came upon me and enveloped me, and when I looked, I could see him through the mist, and he seemed very near. Then he said, now come to me, my friend, tread firmly forward to me, you shall not have hurt. So I began to walk to him through the shaft of a luminous cloud, which was all about me. And although as I went, it was elastic beneath my feet, like very thick velvet, yet I did not sink through the floor of it into the valley, but continued my way uplifted with great joy. For he looked on me and smiled as I went to him. But although he seemed so near, yet I did not reach him. And yet again he stood still and did not retreat from me. But he held at last out his hand to me, and in a few steps more I had it in mind, and he drew me to firmer footing. Then the shaft of light faded, and I found I stood on the further side of the valley and looked across to my own sphere, for I had crossed over by that bridge of heavenly light and power. So what happened? Zabdal's guardian angel, through the force of his mind, created a bridge across a deep and wide valley. The higher the spirit, the more they're able to conjure according to their will. This, in essence, is why the spirit and ourselves strive to improve, so we can control our minds, we can create. The more disciplined one becomes by following the doctrine of Spiritism to be more loving, kind, fraternal, charitable to all in all circumstances, yet exercising authority with gentle calmness. The capabilities a spirit possesses increase. Now, again, this is where we have to, what Spiritism tells us so much. Where, when Jesus said the meek shall inherit the earth, what he did not mean, in fact, you even see that, and there's a great explanation of that in the Gospel according to Spiritism. He did not mean that you just have to sit there and take everything, right? Someone slaps you around or acts, or disappoints you time after time again. No, it just means that you calmly, with logic and with force, right? With maybe indignation, but not anger. That's a primitive emotion. Indignation is focusing your energy on the task at hand. And sometimes you have to get that other person who may not be so willing or so mature, right? Like children, they must do something and they have to, so you have to learn how to, with calmness and logic and love, but again, some force, either defend yourself or get that person to do something. And that all the while we are on earth, swimming in a sea of spirits, good and bad all around us, right? Keeping our emotions in check and making our thoughts and disciplining our thoughts. And that is, if there's anything you can take away from Spiritism, is start disciplining your thoughts, not just your mouth, right? Like your mother said, don't, just keep your mouth shut, right? If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything, right? We've all heard that, I believe. It's even more, Spiritism tells us, don't even think. So when you think something bad, just stop yourself. Believe me, over time, it gets to be a good habit. So you too will be an advanced spirit someday, maybe millions or billions of years from now. A spirit from Earth, starting out in an immature state, will someday lead the destiny of a planet in the same manner as Christ leads us. We too, just like Jesus, could become the governor of a planet or planets to help millions of young spirits rise and become working members of the spirit community. This is what's so exciting about Spiritism. It's telling us so much. It's telling us our part, right? And we get a peek into the entire organization of the spirit realm. And it revolves around promoting, at least what we've seen, what we've been allowed to see yet, revolves around promoting spirits to their utmost capabilities, to enable them to wield great power for the benefit of others. To achieve that goal, spirits must be rigorously trained to never violate the divine laws while always allowing spirits their free will. Now, and free will explains everything on earth, right? We live in a just universe. We do. It just doesn't appear so to us on earth, trapped amongst corrupt officials and criminals. But this is for our own good. I know emotionally that's hard to grasp, but only by living with the result of the lack of love and brotherhood can we see for ourselves the tragedies that occur. The philosophy the spirit world has with us is the same as allowing your children to occasionally make their own mistakes so they will know that you realize they believe they know better than you, right? Don't we all? The results of the ill-considered actions. We are no different. Some people, some people learn the hard way. Some people learn the easy way. And a lot of reshaping our personality and our character has to be done the more difficult, hard way. Hence, we go through hard trials. If this gives anything for you to take away, is this. All the trials we go through, they are not meant to punish us. They're not meant to say, oh, let's just hurt that person. No, the spirit world never does that, no matter what it is. It's to teach us a lesson. We may not like it, right? It's like having your 4-year-old run out into the street. Now, you can't just let that happen because your 4-year-old will kill themselves, right? Him or herself. You either have to, maybe a little tap on the hand or put them in the corner. And when you do that, they just cry. It's like a horrible thing to them. Well, it's kind of like us too. When these things happen to us, we think, oh my God, this is horrible. But if you look at our arc of our lives and you know that we are immortal, it's just a little thing. Now, easier said than done, right? Because I've been a big whiner when things happen to me. So I'm not going to say I've reached that yet, but we all can try. So let's talk more about Zadbel talking with his guardian angel. So Zadbel had reached the side of his mentor, and now for the first time he had the opportunity to speak directly with the unseen hand that has for so long steered him to the correct path in incarnate or discarnate form. And this is what Zadbel said. Then we sat down and communed together many things. He called to my mind past endeavors and showed me where I might have done my task in better ways. And sometimes he commended me, and sometimes he did not commend, but never blamed, but only advised and instructed with love and kindliness. And when he told me something of the sphere on the borderland of which I then was, and some of its glories, and how the better to sense his presence as I went about my task, to which I should presently return to finish it. And so he talked, and I felt very good fellow of strength and delight. And he gave me of his larger strength and of his higher holiness. And I understood a little more than hitherto of man's potential greatness and humility to serve his master, the Christ and God through him. So the past accomplishments of Zadbel were discussed in the sympathetic and caring manner, with gentle suggestions of how to perform better next time. We have seen the same consideration and kindness from spirits and stories by people who have had near-death experiences. And this is what is so exciting about Spiritism. Near-death experiences are explained by Spiritism. I have written a book on, actually 2 books, but this is the latest one. The Spirit World Talks to Us, 12 accounts from near-death and other experiences. It goes through people's near-death experiences and describes and explains what they saw and what the spirit world did, what they are trying to tell them. So let's look into one of these. So there's a good example of the NDE, near-death experiences, of James. And when James' heart stopped, he was dead, right? And he detached from his body. A woman spirit approached him and led him out of our world to the spirit world, whereas many others before him have noted the flowers and trees shine as if lit from within. This same thing is said in the books by Chico Xavier and others. It's showing you the confluence and the the backing up of evidence, of information from many different sources. James, when he wrote this NDE episode, he's not a spirit. He didn't know anything. He's just writing what he saw. This is what he said. I was led by the lady through the forest. I asked where we were and what had happened to me, where we were going. I was told everything was fine and my questions would be answered soon. I didn't feel concerned. In fact, I felt calm and peaceful. I was led by the lady to a clearing in the forest, in the middle of which was a large wooden oval table with 10 or 11 people seated around it and one chair empty, which I was indicated to sit at. Then the lady left. The people at the table seemed very familiar, but in an otherworldly way, and also had the same young but old-looking qualities. I was warmly welcomed and told that I had left my physical body, and the purpose of the council was to decide if I should stay or return to it, and that a review would take place to determine this. The review consisted of a screen which appeared above the table in the center, which began to play a film of my life from the moment I was born. Members of the council paused the film at different parts, and we looked at the circumstances surrounding specific events, sometimes from different perspectives of other people involved. But mostly they were interested in how the experiences had affected me and my feelings about things. Isn't that interesting? There's so much more I can get into. I could spend hours just telling you how they could make the film, how they could bring up the thoughts not only of James, but people around him. All that is explained by Spiritism. And I explained it all in my book. In my books, there's a whole series of books. This is book 3, but read the other 2 books, How We Are Guided by Spirits. So as on earth, in the spirit world, we all have our group of friends who have been with us since we were in school and who have always been concerned with our welfare, constantly checking on our progress with the noble aim of assisting us in our major life challenges. We have our friends in the spirit world who are all the more special because sometimes they watch over us and other times they reincarnate to share our trials together. Additionally, as in the case of Zadbel, we have our guardians as well as mentors, more mature and wiser spirits whom we look for advice and guidance. The group that worked with James is mostly probably made up of friends and mentors, souls that he has intimately known before. But due to his recent separation from his body, his memory before the commencement of the current physical life is hazy. Hence, he seems to know them and feels comfortable in their presence. So next, James' life is reviewed, and not just his actions, but the emotional effect he had upon others and the motivations that cause his actions are analyzed. This is one of the central tenets of Spiritism. Our thoughts are actions, as I said many, many times. But for with thoughts all begins, and actions are merely the completion of a plan. It gets more complex, for our very thoughts influence events and others around us. Not too much here in the physical world, but it gets more and more as you go higher in the spiritual world. We are like radio towers, beaming our innermost musings and emotional thoughts and those to all around us. The spirit world tells us we have a responsibility to control the waves emanating from our brains. This sounds all extremely difficult to perform, but think about why this must be so for a moment. As we progress, as I said before, and become higher and higher pure spirits, the power of our minds also increase in force. Therefore, to ascend in the rank of the spirits, we must learn to control that which shall in the future possess great power. James then tells us about the analysis of his life to date. So listen to this, but see how the same thing was said to Zabal with his mentor. This is what he said. The experience was uncomfortable at times. I had to see myself, warts and all. I saw the best and the worst in myself, but never at any time did I feel I was being judged by anyone present. We reached my present circumstances, and I saw that my lung condition had been created by myself to give me an exit opportunity. Again, our life is predestined, right? We have these episodes. Our free will really consists of our attitudes and our choices in those episodes. We carry on. We had a long debate after the film about my life blueprint and whether or not I had fulfilled my chosen experiences, which were mostly linked to previous lifetimes and spiritual baggage that needed to be cleared and healed. I felt that I needed more time on earth, and this was agreed by the council, who also told me that I would need to go back more spiritually awake to accomplish this. This is what Spiritism tells us, right? We live through multiple lives. James understood completely the reason for his life on earth when he writes the word life blueprint. All of us follow a trajectory planned by the spirit world for our educational benefit. Zabdal had been on both sides of the equation. When he was an incarnate, he too was on a pre-programmed path. So he could pay for his past wrongs and learn what he required, all the while watched over by his guardian angel. We're on Earth. We're on Earth to learn. So let's go back to Zabdal. So he tells us of his parting. So Zabdal says, he came back with me by the way of the valley with his arm around my shoulder to help me with his power. And we talked all the way down and across. And then, as the ascent of the hill on the other side began, we slowly fell to silence. Instead of words, we communed in thought. And when a little way up, returning, I looked upon him. I noticed I could not see him quite so plainly, and he began to be sad at that. But he smiled and said, all is well, my brother. Always it is well between you and me. Remember that. Still, he grew more faint in my sight, and I was minded to turn back again for that reason. But he impelled me gently, and as we ascended, he surely faded from my sight. I did not see him again, but I knew him now as I did not till that time. I felt him in touch with me all the time I lingered on that summit. I turned and looked into the brightness of his sphere across the valley, but I did not see him on the other side. So what is Zabdal saying? What has he told us? He said, what he's telling us in essence is our lives are precious and our time here on earth shouldn't be squandered by stress over temporary material pleasures. Our current society lays a very alluring trap for us. Advertising happiness is within our grasp. If you just earn a few dollars more to the seller of goods or services, it doesn't matter how the money is earned via illicit or illicit means, only that it ends up in someone's coffers. None of the products, homes, and toys acquired will accompany you to the spirit world. Only the sum total of your deeds. Your guardian angel attempts to tell you that whenever you pause from the daily grind to listen, pause a little more in your life. Stop, pray, and meditate. Allow those who really have your best interest at heart guide you. When you sit calmly, ask for guidance from heaven. It will be given. Life in the spirit world is worth sacrificing that one more purchase you wish to make. Live your life so you can be proud that you have never knowingly hurt another, or if you had, try to find the means to atone. Is the greatest victory you could possibly have in this life. Feel free to reward yourself on earth, right, with whatever you've earned through honest dealings for your life, plan, maintain a comfortable living. But try and live according to the golden rule. And look, everything I'm saying, I know it's difficult. Do I achieve that? No, I am still trying. So, but try. While you and your friends may believe you're a bit gullible and not very successful, you and your guardian angel will know that your life on earth has not been in vain. In fact, just the opposite. While others grasp for the golden ring, trampling over whoever stood in their way, and I have done that myself, you meekly, in the true sense of the word as meant by Jesus, acting honestly with focus and determination, pursued a life with a minimum of regrets. You will exit this incarnation richer than you believe possible, into a bright light of love and ready for an even higher ascent the next time. And this is wonderful. This is telling us, this is where Spiritism just illuminates everything. It tells us why we're here. It tells us why we go through what we are. It tells us we're not alone. We're not just dropped on the earth and say, okay, go make your way. No, it says we're here for a purpose, and we need to learn to control our thoughts, and we need to learn to control our actions. And how do we do that? Well, we pray and meditate, but also we start to listen to what was given to us by the Spirit, by the divine world, by God. When we are incarnate on earth, we are given two things that are leftovers from our previous lives: our conscience and our instinct. And our conscience is this law library of what we should do in each circumstance. Now, we fill it in and we put more and more of what we should do in gray areas as we mature and we go life to life of spirits. So a more immature spirit will know less. So that's why primitive spirits, they will do stupid things, right? They will be your thug. They will be your person who robs and maybe, kills just because they want something. But remember, this is where, you can say they should still be in jail. They should still have to be, go through whatever society does, but you can still love them because know that they're mature. Someday they will be mature. It will take multiple lives. And then another way I want to talk about tonight is how we're helped. And again, we are told by Zaddiel is how heaven processes our prayers. Now, isn't that interesting? Prayer, as many people know, is real. Prayers are listened to. And this is, again, what it was. This has been said in, by, many religions, many places, but Spiritism starts telling us, okay, exactly how this works. This is what's just so exciting. This is why when you read about Spiritism, it's like every page is like, oh my God, right? It's oh my heavens. Yeah, now I understand. So let's talk about processing prayers. So high in the upper boundary, on the 10th level of heaven, where Zaddiel resides, Zaddiel tells us there's a colossal tower with 10 sides. Now, this isn't just one of them, right? I mean, this is just the only one. I'm sure there's all throughout. So this is just probably one of the towers. And each side processes the prayers and requests of a specific stage from the lowest level of heaven up to and including the 10th. So it sounds like this one is just talking about within heaven itself. There's probably other ones for within incarnates and then the lower zone and the dark abyss was under that. It's really a grand central station of thoughts, quandaries, conundrums, and problems which all need a response. The Spirit Zaddiel describes the location. The facility is on a plateau, the ground covered in stone, the color fire. The reflection of the stone permeates the air above to a height of 100 yards. Next, Zaddiel describes the building itself. This is what he said. On this level, space was one building. It was of 10 sides, and each side was diverse in color and in architecture from all its fellows. Many stories it had, and rose a glittering pillar whose top caught the light which came along the peaks of the mountains, some far, some near. So high was the tower as it stood there, a sentinel among the mountains of heaven, a very beautiful thing to see. It covered some 8 part of the square, and it had porches on each side. So there were 10 ways to enter, and one facing each of the 10 ways. A sentinel in truth it was, for it was the watchtower of the highest regions of that sphere, but it was more than this. Each side was in touch with one of the first 10 spheres. Those who watched there were in constant communication with the chief lords of those spheres. There's much business passing between these heads of different. Hello, Carlos. Heads of different spheres continually. Here it was gathered up and coordinated. If I might descend to earth for a name, I would call it the central exchange of that vast regions, comprising all those spheres, stretching from that which borders on the earth zone over the continents and oceans and mountains and plains of the second, and then of the third, and so onwards to the 10th. So what is he telling us? Heaven isn't just an ethereal group of clouds in the sky. It is organized. It has controls in place. And it has command and control center, just like any large city or country. This knowledge of heaven is what Spiritism brings to us. Andre Louis, the spirit who told us of his ascent to one of the initial stages of heaven, to the celestial city of No Solar, described the various ministries and organizations which control the life of his beloved spirit home. While the names of the departments may differ from a city on earth, the purpose remains the same, running a complex organization full of souls, all who have work to perform. In the book No Solar, Andre was told that while work is expected from everyone in the spiritual planes, rest was also important. The one person who never seemed to rest was the governor of the city. And when Andre asked if he ever leaves his work, he was told only on occasion when the public welfare demands it. So here we are again. Information from Jiva Owen in the 1910s and 20s, and then we show this from Henri Louis, where we have the head of the city. He never sleeps; he's always working, and he must be reaching out and asking questions. And all his ministers are probably asking questions. And one could imagine the head of No Solar would be well plugged into that watchtower, where the daily business between various cities and colonies, from one sphere to the next, from heaven to the earth, would command the full attention of those entrusted with running a fair-sized metropolis. The Spirit Zaddiel communicated with Reverend Jiva Owen during December 1913 about his visit to the watchtower. He described the people working at the tower as a superior caliber, a higher spiritual level than most spirits residing on the 10th level. They never seemed excited, going about their business in a cool and level-headed manner, always curious, and would go out of their way to make all feel comforted and special. Zadal described them as stately, and they received all reports, information, requests for solutions of some perplexity or for help in other ways in perfect quietude of mind. When something more tremendous than usual burst upon them, they were unmoved and ready always, quietly confident in strength to cope with their task, whatever it might be, and with wisdom to make no mistake. So then Zabdal was invited to the tower, and he reports what he found there. This is what he said. There was a large hall or triangular shape, and high up the floor of the next apartment. We went to the wall where it met in an angle, and there my friend bade me to stand a while and listen. I soon heard voices and could discern the words they brought. These were being dealt with in a room above us, 5 stories aloft, and were transmitted downwards, passing through the floor into the round below, where there were other chambers. I asked the reason of this, and he informed me that all the messages are received by those who had their station on the roof of the building. These are extracted what words they needed for their part of the work and allowed the residue to proceed downwards into the chamber below them. Here the message was treated in like manner and again handed on downwards. This was repeated again and again until it was left passed down the walls of this ground floor room to once again be sifted and the residue passed on below. In each room there was a great multitude of workers, all busy without waste, going about their task. Now you will think this strange in a way to go to work. But the reality was stranger still. For when I say I heard the words, I tell you only half. They were audible visibly. Now, how should I put it in your tongue? I can know better than this. As you gaze at the wall, which was treated in different metals and stones, each vitalized by what principle or answers to electricity with you, you saw the messages in your brain rather than optically. And when you were sensible of its import, you heard the voice which uttered it in some region far away. In this manner, you were aware in your inner consciousness of the tone of the speaker's voice, of his aspect and stature of manner of countenance, of his degree and department of service, and other details of help to the exact understanding of the meaning of the messages he sent. So, let's see what he said. As an analogy on Earth for the watchtower would be a government listening post, right? These are stationed throughout the world to intercept radio, cell, and satellite traffic to pull from the airwaves any snippet of information that a government may wish to know about other governments or individuals. And when a cell phone transmits a voice, it doesn't just send over the digitized representation of your voice, but other information as well. It transmits the phone number that sent the messages, the destination, the geographic location, and the time, plus other information. The same way happens to us here on Earth. In the book, In the Realms of Mediumship, published in 1955, the Spirit Emmanuel told us of our unique identification in the introduction titled Rays, Waves, Mediums, and Minds. He reveals that our thoughts flow out. They, too, are tagged with our ID, our unique identification number. Hence, even we are like a walking radio tower, transmitting our thoughts out to the universe on a second-by-second basis. Imagine 7 billion radio towers all broadcasting at once, 24 hours a day. The sky would be filled with trillions of pieces of information, each packet labeled precisely as to who sent it, the time, the feeling, the emotion, what was seen, and the thought that started it. In computer science and the software industry in general, there's a concept of data following you, whereupon whenever you require information, it would be there, ready to answer any question you may have. The concept is what spurred the rise of the cloud. Information living outside, always available to be pulled and analyzed. So why shouldn't the spirit world trump this concept 1,000-fold? Data is everywhere. Data is in everything. Data is everything. This also explains psychometry, right? Data collects itself and connects itself to objects. And from objects, you can find out what's going on. Data creates and data lives. Spirits manipulate data, and the higher the spirit, the greater ability to shift, shape, and move it. All it takes is a listening post, a facility to filter the data flowing about the spirit universe, to only catch that which is pertinent and then to process and act upon it. Zadal gives us an example. He watched the entire process because it was hard for him to translate the string of messages completely enough so he could understand them. They were too complex, too dense, and full information. His guide offered to translate one of the strings of messages. So here's the example that was given. This is what he said. It was to the effect that a party had been sent from the 6th sphere into the 3rd to help in the construction of some works that are proceeding. Those who had designed them had been of high development and had included in the apparatus and structure to contain it a somewhat more advanced scheme that was possible to construct out of the substance of that sphere. I'm going to put the problem to you thus. If you were to endeavor to build up a machine for the manufacture of ether and the conversion of it into matter, you would find no substance to hand on Earth of sufficient sublimity to hold the ether, which is of a force greater, more terrific than any force, which is imprisoned within what you understand as matter. There's a somewhat similar problem they encountered now and wanted advice of how best to proceed in order that the scheme might be carried out as to a large extent as possible. This is one of the simpler problems the higher ones are given to solve. So what does that tell us? Help is always at hand. There's always, it's like, you always have the helpline, right? You ask questions. Here in the spirit world, you sit and you pray, you meditate, says, I don't understand this problem. Can I get help? We don't always request to perceive it, but there are listening posts for our physical sphere. There is an army of spirits who gather, filter, and respond to our thoughts, meditations, and prayers. The spirit realm, they built the earth, so spirits may reside there to undergo intensive training. So we humans may learn the difference between the dark road and the path of light. The goal is to enable all of us to become valuable members of the spiritual society, participants who contribute as opposed to students requiring training. We are still students, learning to calmly solve problems with love and kindness in our heart, no matter how difficult or urgent the situation is. So I hope that helped everyone tonight. This is what Spiritism and this is what I am trying to do in my book. So again, if you go to my blog, nwspiritism.com, and what I've done is I've tried to get multiple information from different spiritist mediums, spiritist writers who psychograph information from high spirits all the way from Allan Kardec, Leon Denis, Yvonne Pierre, Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco, and organize these into things and explained from different points of view from these different spiritist mediums how things work. I'm trying to bring this together so we really have an understanding of what is awaiting us on the other side. And if we understand what's awaiting us on the other side, we understand why our life is like it is, and we understand why we must go through what we must in order to improve ourselves. And with that understanding, it's like when you're a child and you don't want to learn, and you go to class and you resist and you resist and resist, and you learn nothing. Versus the student who understands, he wants that education. He or she wants that degree. They go to class and they listen, and they learn, they participate. And the outcomes are totally different. One outcome is the person's made hasn't made any progress whatsoever. The Spiritism calls that parking, just parking life after life. The other person who wanted and participated and understood and listened to the teachers and professors and talked to other classmates had made great strides. And that's where I want to leave you. So I want to thank you for being with me today. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And this is, I want to urge everyone, please share what you can. Go to my YouTube channel. You'll see it on my nwspiritism.com. Click on my YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Share this video to other Facebook pages to your friends. Go to YouTube, share the fact that YouTube channel, share, Kardec Radio. Just let people know, let people understand how important Spiritism. And look, as Spiritists, we're not trying to force it on to people. We're just trying to say, here's information. This may be of interest to you. Because even though at first, if they may look at it, I remember my wife, someone gave her a spirits book. And she looked at this and just like ignored it, right, for like 10 years, right? It was just, looked at it, kind of read it a bit, didn't really understand it. Who can blame her? But then finally, when she was ready, it popped up again, and we both got involved in Spiritism. So there's, you just never know, but just a kind word and a little direction, say, this might be of interest, will help to other people. So I want to thank everyone, and thank you for a wonderful night. And please, again, remember, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and all the other time zones, we are live here on the Kardec Radio Facebook page. God bless you. I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio.
and to point you in a direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.